So, my talk today is about how we each have a need for subconscious guidance. And that is to say that our subconscious needs us to guide it. And we don't realize that when we are having fear, anxiety, worry of some kind, that what ends up happening is we get we're scaring our subconscious when that happens. Basically, the subconscious is kind of like us as a small child. It's mature by the age of 7. And so in a lot of ways, it needs a loving parent. And if we haven't had that modeled for us, or if we had perhaps a loving parent who was very anxious, then we could have inadvertently end up not guiding it at all, which is in fact scaring it. So one of the things that successful people do is they guide their subconscious. An example of this I came across was just randomly years ago. I believe it was a quote from Margaret Mead, who said, "Everything always turned out marvelously well because I always knew it would." And it was, that kind of wording. I'm probably not remembering it 100% right. And at the time, I thought, well, how arrogant is that? I didn't realize that she was actually a genius about calling in exactly what she needed to do. And of course, it turns out marvelously well when you are supportive of your subconscious and you give it a path. So our fear or anxiety or worry is telling the subconscious mind that there's something to worry about, that there's something unknown about what's going to happen. And the conscious mind and the subconscious mind don't like the unknown. So we're creating worry in the subconscious mind. It then spins out and gives us, as the conscious mind, more to worry about. So we have two things in worry and panic mode. Instead, we might be scared as heck, but if we start telling ourselves something like this, then instead we're going to be connecting in to this new destination, giving the subconscious guidance about what resources to draw in to support the path that we're telling it to take. Now, when we tell it that it should align and head towards everything turning out marvelously well, what we're doing is aligning with the forces of healing and creativity and positivity. And when we don't, we're aligning with the forces of destruction. And these are things that are way bigger than humans. They're massive forces in nature that we have only the ability to try to align with to get our strength in this world. So for years, I can tell you for years, because I've done it the wrong way most of my life, I've been aligning with the forces of destruction. Now, we see that with people with autoimmune illness, which is something that I've dealt with for a long time, and I'm so far back that I wouldn't be diagnosed with it today by a doctor, but for the majority of my life, I've been dealing with fibromyalgia. And my therapist told me a while back that autoimmune illness means that you have slipped into the balance of being more aligned with the forces of destruction. Well, when I came down with COVID in January, it was so alarming for my nervous system because of all of the things that I had been told about the dangers of COVID that I was on high alert. I've heard a lot of people say, I've never slept better in my life. Everything was devoted to my healing. And when I didn't have that opportunity, I had the lightest sleep of my life because I was in fight or flight. I actually had a meeting with my therapist the day that I had the diagnosis, which was a synchronistic thing that worked out. My monthly meeting was then. And she said, you're being called to align with the forces of healing. Well, okay, so you get a message like that. It's not like you've got like your little handy how to align with the forces of healing manual in front of you to work with. So I was like, okay, square one here. And so what I was doing was, to try to get there, was every time I would catch myself thinking fear thoughts, I would go, oh, aligning with the forces of destruction. Then I would say, everything always turns out marvelously well. And then something else would come up. Maybe, I couldn't find a pet that should have been there, or if you had a small child, something might happen where you found out that they were feeling ill themselves, or just something to keep coming back to fear would happen, and I would be caught up in that whirlwind and go, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing that thing. I need to align with the forces of healing. Everything always turns out marvelously well. Yes, I have a splitting headache, but everything turns out marvelously well. Yes, I have pain in my GI tract. Everything always turns out marvelously well. And everything did turn out marvelously well for me, thank goodness. But more useful is, day-to-day life when we're not sick, trying to head the direction that we want, whether we're a business person, trying to draw in business, whether we're in relationship with children, with spouses, everything always turns out marvelously well. And when we catch ourselves in how could they do this to me? How could they treat me? Everything always turns out marvelously well. It gives you the opportunity to see more clearly what might have been my part in this. How can we compromise? Is this really the right direction for us to be going in? Oh, maybe I see that they have, even though it sets me off because of my childhood stuff, I can see maybe this way that they're proposing would work better. So it just opens things up. So wherever you feel that you have hopes and dreams that are blocked, bring that to it and align with those forces of healing. Then just recently, again, I was feeling like I had come down with something. I guess it was maybe on the order of a week or two ago. Oh, it was where I had eaten so much wheat that I had a little bit of bronchitis crop up. And of course, these days you don't know what you're coming down with when you're coming down with something. So I was thinking about COVID again and taking the tests every day, and never turned out positive for COVID, but all of my old symptoms of bronchitis came up. And those are old patterns from my childhood because I had bronchitis so much as a child. It was interesting to go, oh, I'm having these sensations and I'm having these symptoms, but everything always turns out marvelously well. And I would catch myself, oh, I wonder how sick I'm going to get this time. I know bronchitis, that can just be really awful, but everything always turns out marvelously well. I had the quickest case and got right back on my feet because I kept giving a destination where things worked out well. So, any questions?